Hey, everybody, how's it going? This is Gabe Pankonin. You are listening to the Rocket Revenue Podcast, as you just heard. And this is actually our first episode. And we're going to be talking a lot about go to market strategies. I'm the CEO of a company called Rocket Shipping. My co host is Troy Barter. He needs no introduction, but this whole episode is actually going to be a background of who Troy Barter is. Right now, he's the head of sales at Rocket Shipping, but he's had a long career in sales and tech sales, and we're going to get into that. But just to give you an overview, the entire reason we're doing this podcast is to kind of open source how to build a revenue architecture, how to get to predictable, repeatable revenue models, and how you do that in a startup that's bootstrapped. When you don't have unlimited budget to hire salespeople, and so Troy, to kind of get things started, I'm just, going to ask you a few questions. What's your background? But can you give a high level overview of your sales career to this point, and then maybe end it with how you ended up at Rocket? And we can go into the details of that
Absolutely.
too. It's a
I
great
can
story.
I can run back uh, pretty far, but I'll move quick. So I got into sales um, selling beats on the internet. So I was a battle rapper for years. I started
Beats.
off battle rapping online on rapmusic.com, where you would you'd post like an audio diss track to somebody else in a tournament format, and it built into a lot of those people ended up in some of the larger leagues like Grind Time and King of the Dot. I did it as well. But a lot of people were making beats on there. You throw them on what was used to be SoundClick. Now, SoundCloud, I think, is the one, but it used to be SoundClick.com. And you'd sell them for $100, $150 here and there. And I was like, I have no clue how to do that. I learned how to make beats through friends of mine that were producers. Some of them got pretty good at it. And I never really got that good at it, but I got good at selling them because SoundClick.com, you could go on there and there's a list of the charts of all of the rappers that are on there. And it's like, all right, all these guys are underground rappers. They probably need beats. They're at least they're either downloading them or they're licensing them or they're looking to buy them. And you could easily build a list of your ICP of who you want to prospect into, and then fire off emails, AOL Instant Messenger. No way of getting a hold of them on the phone, so you had to do it all digital. But I was able to almost kind of like pay the rent just through doing that. And again, I wasn't good at making the beats. It was the selling part that I was good at. It was, and I didn't,
Better
yeah,
skill set, anyways.
a
Serves you in
hundred
other
percent.
areas of life.
My monitor would break. I'd throw a beat up online on tampahiphop.com. Someone would come over and buy it, and I'd have a monitor bought by the end of the day so I could keep working. Like I learned to hustle through doing that for sure. And I was like, man, I should probably try doing this for a living. So I didn't know of any other sales really outside of like car sales. Was the first one that I thought of. Is like, that's what you do, right? If you're selling, you sell cars. So down the road in Tampa was
Yeah.
Florida Avenue. Went to University Chevrolet, and literally was like a university. You learned how to sell there pretty well, and got in. Did pretty well in the car business. I never moved outside of like the starting role. Like I wasn't a closer or anything. I did it for probably a year and a half or 2 years, but I did well. I was what? Go
Can I
ahead.
pull a thread? Can I pull a thread? When you said University of Chevrolet, I thought that was like a
No, it
figure
literally
of
was the
speech.
name of
Is
it
that actually
because it
like a
was near
sales training for
University
auto sales?
Mall, which is named that because of USF, University of South Florida. So like it's University
Okay.
Chevrolet, yeah, which changed to Tom Moore Chevrolet. It's like it's changed hands like 15 times since then. But yeah, like that's what they used to say. Is like the only people that come here are brand new because like it's not the best spot. So it's literally is University Chevrolet. You're here to learn. You're not really here to make a ungodly amount of money or anything like that. What made me want to leave the car business really more than anything, it's actually twofold. One was my license was absolutely crap. Like I had so many points that they couldn't have me on the lot anymore. At the time, it's a lot different than I am nowadays. Nothing crazy, just like not paying tickets and shit like that. But
Yeah.
also, you have to work in the car business generally every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. I was like, man, if I could just find like a
Mm,
sales job where I could work like a
not the
regular
best hours.
schedule, that'd be nice. So I got invited for this like marketing job. It was very vague in terms of the job description, but it seemed like it was like high end. It was over in a nice part of Tampa and everything like that. Showed up, it's like, oh, this is great. I'm going to like be a professional. And I never got my degree. I dropped out when I was selling cars once I was making more money than my degree would have paid me. And I was like, all right, cool. I can level up. Went in there, went in the waiting room. Everyone's suited and booted. Everyone's dressed super nice in the waiting room. Everyone looks super professional. Had an interview. They're like, yeah, we're going to have you shadow for a day and see kind of how it is. And it's like, all right, cool, awesome. Shadowing some top tier marketing professionals. And then like I get in there and I go show up to shadow and we're like, all right, we're hopping in the car. We're going out. It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. We have to hop in the car. It's direct marketing. No, this is door to door. It was B2B sales, selling yeah, selling
Oh.
Verizon. It's a company called Sidcore. I mean, anyone could look it up. Like, you can make good money there if you're at the top. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's a multi-level direct marketing play. However you want to. All right, it was 100% commission. Yeah,
MLM,
I
yeah.
took the job because I was in Florida at the time and I wanted to get back up to Massachusetts at the time, and they were like, "You can open an office anywhere. Like, once you build it up and you get leaders under you, like, you hear it almost already sounds like it's like Mona V or like Amway. You gotta get people under you, and then they're under you."
Yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds like Amway a little bit.
it
I've been in an Amway,
100%.
meeting
But
before as
I was
well.
like, "All right, cool. I'll do it. I know how to sell already, so let's go." I learned I didn't make any money there. I was number 3 or number 5 in the nation for Verizon out of hundreds of reps, and I made 22 grand that year. I made next to nothing. This was in like 2008. But I learned, I mean, the stuff that I still apply, half of the stuff that I've built like my following on came from there. So like the way that they operated was like, yeah, you ain't gonna make a damn thing unless you make it to like being a manager that runs your own independent corporate licensee office, where you represent Verizon, Quill,
Yeah,
Office Supplies, a bunch of other ones. But we're going to teach you everything. We're going to leave you better than we found you for sure. And that was true. Like, absolutely, I wouldn't trade back. Like, the relationships that I built there are the exact reason why I made it into tech sales. So long story short, I left there for a sister company that paid double. And that's where I became a GM and I learned how to manage.
seems like a
Yeah,
good choice.
2020 companies, and I remember talking to my boss over at Sidcore and saying, "Hey, I could just so you know, I'm not going to take any of your reps. Like, I'm going to go over there, but I'll just build it on my own." And still love her to this day. She was really confident. She's like, "You can go ahead and try." I took about half her team. Should not have said that. That was a giant mistake. They paid more. They paid more, and they knew that I could train in the same stuff. And that's one thing that I've always taken with me is like, as I started to move into better companies, is like the only way that that company works is that they provide just stellar training and leadership and support. Like, it is beyond second
Yeah,
to none, the culture that they have. Nothing comes close. And usually when you get to companies that start to pay really well, they'll be like, "Well, I don't have to do that because we're paying you really well. Like, I don't need to give you a pat on the back. I don't need to support you with much of anything. We pay you better than anybody else will." So like I've always tried to have it like, all right, cool. Well, I want to do that too. I want to pay people well, but like, what if we took the old grimy job and all the stuff that worked for them to keep people to stay, and we applied it to like a real company that actually pays you decent? And I think it's part of what's done well is like I never
yeah.
kind of lost that side of things. Um, once I go ahead.
Well, I would say too, that same theme, rather than just saying the companies that pay better were not having to train, which
Yep.
is actually the case. In the SaaS world in Silicon Valley, it's actually a different principle. It's our product and our tech is so good, people will want to sell this because they can make big commissions, so they can get paid a lot, and the product is so good. But they're all VC backed or private equity, and they just spend a bunch of money. They don't actually train anybody because they don't have to, because the product is so good. Until turns out funding's tough to get, and you need people who can really sell and have that skill set. So I think they missed on that
Yeah,
too.
there's this concept of like the next round of funding is always coming. So we actually don't have to be
Yeah.
profitable because we'll just keep raising and we'll be fine. We'll just keep growing and keep raising and then we'll be good and then eventually we'll go public. Like, it's like kind of like,
And we'll hire a bunch of sellers instead of training the ones we have to be better. And so
yeah,
theirs is a
and
volume.
that really can hurt because then you're segmenting off the market in terms of who you can hire like substantially because you're only looking for this goes from entry level, which it's not entry level because they're looking for people with experience even at entry level, all the way up to like their
Yeah.
CRO, where they're like, because and it's a lack of vision and talent on the people who have leadership of the sales org, where they're like, well, we're right now about to be at 10 million revenue, and we need someone that's taking it from 10 million to 40 million. So we're not going to bet on somebody that's crushing it and helped us get to 10 million, that is showing a lot of indicators that they could take it further and they're motivated and they're a good fit.
Yeah.
No, we need someone that's done that exact thing already. It doesn't matter really much of anything else. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're the best culture fit. It doesn't matter whether, they're going to be, they can't really prove kind of how they did it. They just did do it. No, we just need somebody that did that, because I have to
Mhm.
justify it to, the board. I have to justify it to everybody else. And they just want to look at the number. And it's,
And then they do the worst thing you could do is they pay them a huge base salary because they've done it before and they demand a huge price. And then there's no real incentive to revenue. And they don't know, the people who have done it before don't necessarily know how to train anyways, because they didn't have to. They were just in an organization that was set up for success and they were a great seller. Now, pulling on that thread, it sounds like you know a lot about sales. How did you, let's go back to the story. Where were you?
yeah,
You were
so
at
I moved in
2020 something,
2020.
a competitor. You took half the route.
I got
Where'd you go from there?
completely screwed at 2020. They told me, I actually never told this story on a podcast. Like, I left 2020. They said, yeah,
Exclusive to
because I've
Rocket
done like
Revenue.
I always say, like, almost every time I'm a guest on a podcast, it's like the Spider-Man franchise, where like every movie's the same. Uncle Ben gets killed, and then he, like, it's the origin story every time. So I'm glad we're doing this on the first one, so that we can keep it pushing. But on the 2020 deal, they were like, so I was a GM. The levels were, you were either a salesperson, you're a GM, or you're a director of sales. Director of sales, you make 100 grand or more. GM, you make probably 50 to 60 grand. And then if you can get above that, you're making crazy money. I think the most probably made probably about 750,000 once you're like a RVP that has multiple offices and everything. All this is 100% commission, by the way. It's either commission or overrides off of your team, because it's all door to door. There's in the
Mhm.
salary. I think we actually had health insurance, which is a surprise. Definitely didn't get it at Sidcore, but like, so I was a GM and I was crushing it. I should have already been a director. I had brought in people. Again, I pilfered to that other office to the point that the CEO of Sidcore sent a certified letter to 2020 saying Troy can't bring over anyone else. We're going to sue. And it was like, all right, cool. I won't do that anymore. I'd already brought in all the boys, some of the gals and everything. And they became GMs and they grew a team. So, but it wasn't like this, I didn't get paid off of those, because it wasn't like Sidcore, where like anything that you build underneath you, you get paid on. It was like, no, I'm kind of proving myself to become a director. So, Lisa's got her team, Elvin's got his team, Chris has his team, and I helped recruit all of them. I helped train all of them. It's all my format. I took all of the Sidcore stuff and translated it where it made sense. But I was stuck at GM because the boss above me, Steve, was a director. And what incentive does he have to make me his peer? He's got to make no money off of me. So they finally came to this thing. They're like, all right,
Yeah.
Troy, you crushed it in Tampa. You really should already be a director. You've built 4 teams, but we don't want to make you one. So we'll do this. If you are willing to move from Tampa to New York City, we have a new um, whatever you want to call it, company that we're selling for. It's called Green Mountain Energy. It was a deregulated electricity play, but all of their energy was green. It's actually a really cool thing to be able to sell, because there's not many competitive differentiators when it comes to deregulated electricity. You either are you're saving money on rates, and that's kind of it. It's kind of funny. It's actually similar to what we do. We have differentiators in a business where it's really just like, well, we're going to save you money. Like we have much more than that.
Yeah.
And they're like, no one's ever sold this before for the company. This is a brand new contract. It's technically a pilot. And they want to, the market that they want is New York City. So not only do you have to go up there, you have to figure out how to sell it first, because no one sold it before in the entire company. We have 0 playbooks for this. So you have to go out there, you have to knock doors in a city that you've actually never been in, and figure out how to sell in New York City. By the way, the market's been deregulated for like a decade at that point. So everyone's already been pitched a million times by
Not
people that knew how to
new.
sell it. They're like, you figure that out, you build your first team in Manhattan, and then you'll bring up another GM and you'll build out a team in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and then you'll be director.
Easiest parts of America to sell in though, right, Barter?
It's
So, I mean, why didn't you just
it's
jump at that?
funny. It can be easy if you know how. Like, I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm big on like
Yeah, but
get
if
to the
you're a
point.
rookie at
Like
that,
I,
you get eaten up
but it
pretty
is
quick.
tough. It's definitely tough. Yeah, I had to figure it out pretty quick, or else. Again, this is 100% commission. So I get out there, there's not even a ramp. I'm basically operating with no safety net. Oh, I
Oh, so
took
you
it.
did take it?
Yeah, I took
You
it.
did
I
go
took
out
it, and
there?
I even convinced people to move with me. A friend of mine, still a friend of mine, Chris Greenidge moved up. A friend of mine, Greg Lesperance moved up, and they were all going to be GMs also. In fact, they did become GMs, and we built the teams, and we figured out how to sell it. And the way that I figured it out was like, all right, we cannot go in there and say we're going to save them money. They've heard it 1,000 times, and they've already had their rates lowered. Like they've already, it's rip and replace at this point. They've already done the deregulated energy play with another company. So, all right, what do we do then? Well, we're green and we're in New York City where they actually care. This play might not work in certain states, but it certainly works in New York City where you come and you say, I don't even care about saving money on your bill. I might, better chance that I'm going to be able to secure your rate, but that's actually not why I'm here. I'm here because we're green. All of our stuff comes from either windmills, solar,
What year is this
2010,
in? What time
2011.
frame is this? Okay, so green was just
It was a huge
becoming
play in New York at
the
the
movement
time.
that it
So,
is.
there's no question why they made that their market that they wanted to start in with us, and it worked. People sort of like, "Oh, okay," and it's like, "All right, this is where you separate yourself. You're using indifference in terms of the building blocks or your points of impulse, where it's like, I actually don't care about, like selling you. Like, indifference is you care more about the customer than you care about the deal. So you come in or, and you're
Mhm.
leveraging the fact that it's green more than anything, and because of that, I could pull the
And they
bill,
need
which is
that.
actually all that I cared about because even in door to door, we were staged. So I knew my goals at every step to the sale. And one of the master goals was I needed to get their electric bill in my hand. Once it was in my hand, I knew that my closing percentage raises. There's a much higher chance that I'm at least going to be able to present. If I present enough times, I'm going to get a deal. So that pulled the bill. Because of that green play, I was able to pull the bill. We were good, and it built out where we had all of these teams. We were starting to go into the different, boroughs of New York City. And, it was literally promised to me that if we did all this, I moved to director and I run it all. That's why, like, broke the lease on my apartment, moved all my shit up. Like I did it all. And then my director hit me up and was like, hey man, they don't have anywhere for me to get promoted. So like you can either stay as a GM there or like I'm just gonna take all of it because I never guaranteed any of this to you in writing. And he's just a piece of crap. Like there's no other way of looking at it. So I didn't quit. I was like, I was really OG with the quiet quitting. I just stopped working. I just had fun in New York City until they yeah,
Quiet
until they
quitting.
got rid of me, I just had fun in New York. I was like, "All right, cool." Like, because I did get an override off the team that I built, but I was like, "I'm not up here to be," and my mom was 2 hours down the road in Brimfield. I was like, "All right, once they fire me, I'll leave, and I'll just go over there and I'll figure it out." Like, and I that's when I started to battle rap in person. No better place to do it than New York City. That's when I started to see battles and everything. I started to do that, and I was like, "All right, well, we'll see how long until they fire me." And they did pretty quick. And it's like, all right, cool, and moved on. Lived up north for a bit, tried a few different things, did not pan out that well. Didn't find that many great opportunities. Moved back down to Florida, and I was doing door to door or B2B for a merchant processing company. And I went into the office for the first time, and there's a plaque on the wall. It said Travis Haulk, which is not like Haulk. It's not like a name that most people have, And I worked
Yeah.
with him door to door at Sidcor. And I also went to sixth grade with him up the street from where I live right now, Waitman Middle School. So I knew Travis since I was like 11. So I just sent a picture to him. I was like, "Is this you? I don't know that many Travis Houks out there." And he was like, "Dude, leave there right now. I'm across the bridge. You should not be working there. I need to talk to you." And he was at Fleetmatics. He had just been promoted to director at Fleetmatics because they had a mass exodus where the guy who started the Clearwater office left to go to another like competitor, took a bunch of people with him. And I started as an SDR though. So I had experience all the way up to being like a national director of sales. I started as an SDR. And I had no problem with that.
At
What was that?
Fleetmatics, right? Started as an
Yep,
SDR
I
at
started at the
Fleetmatics?
bottom.
And just to frame this, this is why it's so hard to build go-to-market teams because just in this origin story, you've been at a couple of companies, been screwed by managers, been kind of screwed over by directors. You've gone to another company and a sales guy who had moved on said, "Don't ever work there because the culture's crap." And then you went over to Fleetmatics, and the only reason you had that opportunity is because there was a mass exodus. This podcast is going to break down go
Yep.
to market teams. But I mean, a big theme is like this is hard. It's hard stuff to do, especially when there's funding and there's huge competition in the market. When you're talking about Verizon and those, it's just as hard to keep people at a smaller scale. As a startup, you lose a top sales rep, you might lose
Yep.
30% of your revenue. And so on future episodes, I'll talk a little bit about my, start in
Yep.
sales and how I left one company to start my own and the impact it had on that company. But I think if you're watching the show and you're a seller, and you've moved around or you've seen drama and culture, like we all know what this is
Yeah.
about. So you
Yeah,
started
I
as an
started at the bottom.
SDR
Now we're
at
here.
Fleetmatic?
So he wouldn't let me leave until I filled out like an application. Actually, I don't even think I filled one out. I just had to like commit to start. And they had a base, and the base was almost as much as I had ever made in a year. So I was like, all right, this is yeah. Yeah, the answer is yes, which by the way wasn't that much. Up until
Too
this point,
bad.
I've been in sales. This is 2013. I've been in sales 7 years. I think the most I ever made was 60 grand. That is not a testament to how bad I was at sales. I whipped ass everywhere I went. I just picked the worst sales opportunities that you possibly could pick. 100% commission door to door. Yeah,
Plenty of
like I
those
just
out
fell
there,
into all
100%
these.
commission, but you have
Yeah,
caps
and I
and
mean,
targets and
I wouldn't change it because I learned all of the stuff that I think makes me dangerous now, I learned at those trash opportunities. Like, what happened where I got screwed over at 2020 is why, like, when I have conversations with our reps at Rocket, I know that, like, dude, you have to have a really clear path, and it has to be actually fair. And if it couldn't be fair, I wouldn't work there. Like,
Mhm.
I would rather risk not making any money because I've been in those shoes, like, at a dramatic level, and it sucks. So yeah, I started at Fleetmatics as an
Yeah.
SDR, and what got me there is that the regional vice president for that office, Mike DiPiazza, he ran a meeting and he said you can reach out and touch somebody in this office that's making six figures. 25% of this room makes 100 grand or more a year, and I was like, dude, I've never been like worse than the top 5%. So you're basically, I just looked at the room. I was like, none of these people are impressing me enough where I think I can't beat them. So you're telling me that if I do everything that I can for the first time, I legitimately can make six figures. And I killed myself. Like for the first month and a half, because I got promoted fast because they needed AEs. And I was in a good situation where I knew Travis, Travis knew me, and Travis knew how good I was from the door to door days when I was kicking ass. So like I went in there and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put like, and I also it was like Slumdog Millionaire. If you've ever seen that movie, where like they showed me the script, they didn't train
Yeah.
on it. Like they just like basically showed it to you. But because of my life experience up until then and what I had learned, I knew what all of the building blocks were of their script better than the trainer did because they didn't realize what they were doing. Like I knew, all right, this is the intro.
Another common
Yep.
theme in go to market is that the trainers are rarely good salespeople themselves. And so that is something we'll talk
Absolutely.
about on
And
this
like
podcast.
even if they're pretty good at training, like they don't know how to do it in like a fully repeatable way. Like you talk to some of the best salespeople that you'll ever meet, the best, and you ask them how they do, more than half the time they can't
Yeah.
really tell you. They're like, I just get up and grind every
I
day.
can't tell anybody.
And it's like, all right, well, like, yeah, but I if I watch you for a day, I can probably repeat 75% of what you're doing. You've got intangibles for sure, but like a lot of the stuff that you're doing are building blocks that were in a book on sales that was wrote 100 years ago. You just didn't know that you were doing it because
Mhm.
you're a natural. Like so, like when I looked at their script, it was like, all right, you're leveraging social proof right off the bat, working with the folks over at ABC Plumbing. I'm helping them with, and then you're hitting them with a quick value prop, and then you're asking a question. You're only asking a question be like not kind of to qualify, but just so you don't steamroll them before you go for the close. And then there's an option close. What I normally do is schedule a short online demonstration, get you a live look at a fleet that's in your area and how we can, handle all of the problems that we just went over, reporting tools, everything like that. When's the best time for you to take a look at something like that? Would later today work for you?
Take notes, everybody. He just went
Right.
through the entire script right there from value
So
prop and trial
it was
close,
easy. It was
option
easy for
close.
me. I started July 3rd, 2013. I didn't leave training. That's the day I started. I walked in July 3rd, and by the end of July, I think I was in the top three of SDRs and not in bookings and closed one. Because their sales cycle was 48 to 72 hours. No inbound, all cold
Yeah, it was
calls.
a fast sales
Biggest thing was
cycle.
the option close. They didn't realize how important it was. And I had seen it in the car business. I had seen it in a bunch of other things. Saw it in alarms, going door to door selling alarms, which is one of the things that I did in between 2020 and there, where like you say, oh, yeah, is that I think that's the panel for your alarm right there. When you point, they open the door. I just need to take a quick look at that. Do you want me to take my shoes off? That's a yes or no question, right? But the reality is, whether you pick yes or no, I'm coming in. It's either yes, take your shoes off, or no, don't. But I'm coming in to go. And once I'm in, we're going to probably have a deal. So I knew that you needed to have a this or that that's very clear. And you need to make sure that it's not a yes or no where they have an option to say no. I don't provide prospects with the option to say no. They have to take it for themselves. They always have the option, but we don't provide it. So when's the best time for you to take a look? Would later today work for you?
Yeah.
Or would tomorrow be better for that? And all of their reps were saying, does today or tomorrow work? Well, that's a yes or no question. You lumped them together. So because I knew the building blocks, I was able to like immediately crush it. Plus, I changed when I went to bed, changed when I woke up. If I didn't get a booking for the day, I dialed the phone 200 to 300 times in the day because there was no way that I wasn't going to get a booking the next day. I was going to fill my funnel because I knew that this was a real opportunity for six figures and I had never had one before. And I was sick of being broke, you know? Uh,
Yeah, and I think to stop you there too, so that we can break it down. A lot of people say one of the things that you said, and a lot of people say the other, and it always takes both. You said you need to be able to do this option close, and that's more of a technical like strategy and actual
yep.
method of selling. And people who are naturals already are doing that, but maybe they can't portray it and they can't repeat it to
Yep.
others. They're doing it. And then the second thing is if you don't book a meeting, you made two to 300 dials. And so you have to do both in sales. And a lot of gurus will talk about, it's just if you make 200 dials, you will win. That's probably true. But if you do 200 dials and you are using a framework, you definitely will. And so I think that's important to
Yep.
say. One, you drew on your past experience. I think that all sellers should do that. And there's always misconception, especially in logistics and at rocket shipping. The misconception is you have to have industry experience in freight, but really you need to have sales experience and sales chops. And you can take that framework, learn a value prop like Barter has at Rocket, and be able to and put that in a framework, and then be able to close deals, whether it's shipping or
Yep.
cars
It's
or tech
so
sales. So
you've
I
got
think
a
that's
funnel,
important to frame.
right? And it starts out here and then it goes down to here. I don't care what sales you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. It's never here to here. You don't get the same amount. So this goes down. If you have it staged properly, as it's starting to go down from a wide funnel, for if anyone's listening and not watching, and it's decreasing down to your deals, which are going to be a smaller amount than the amount of dials that you make or the amount of emails that you make and everything like that. Every step as the funnel goes down, there's a conversion rate. So you have your activity number that fills the funnel, and then you have a conversion rate.
And it's not
Right. Yeah,
100%
no,
the
it's
whole
not.
way.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's not. So what salespeople will do usually is one or the other. You either are such a workhorse with crap conversion rates that your funnel is this wide, and then it dramatically reduces due to a bad conversion rate down to here, and you're still good because you've had that wide enough of a funnel. Or one salespeople get really skillful, really good. Instead of having a funnel that's even halfway wide, it's like this, but it doesn't matter because the conversion rates are so solid that it still gets you to the same thing. The key is, if you really want to do well,
Mhm.
is once you get that skill level and the conversion rate, you
President's
keep
Cup
your
winners
funnel
do
like
this
this.
one.
And if you keep the funnel as wide as you can with the activity that you do, once those conversion rates start to get better, then you're left with all of this that you get that are all of your deals. And that's probably one of the largest
Yeah.
things where like salespeople are like, man, I'm way better than I was before, but I'm kind of getting the same amount of deals. Do you have the same energy that you did before? Do you have a wider funnel? Or did you figure out that you don't need a wide funnel to do just enough to get by? And the reps that get
Yeah.
better without reducing the level of output, particularly at the SDR level, but really everywhere, that to me is the largest difference. Would that have been sustainable for me? Probably not long term. I think I probably would have eventually burnt out as an SDR, but I had the skill level. I saw their script and I knew all of the building blocks up front. I had borderline delusional confidence of I knew that there was no way that anyone else could beat me in the office. And you could say that that was like a bad thing or a good thing, but like I was ready to go. I was not afraid to pick that phone up. That was all that was in the way of me getting a six-figure opportunity, and I was willing to put in the amount of work. So I had the ability to have really good conversion rates because I understood what the script was, I understood how to work it, and my output was higher than everybody else's while I was a SDR. You say, "Yeah, you're an SDR for a month and a half, so
Yeah.
that's easy to do," but it's like I don't know that many that really do it even up front,
It had to
you
be
know,
done.
like, and that is the thing is like once you create that habit, it makes it's very easy for you to continue to do that. Nothing, no, yep, go ahead.
So for the viewers, I mean, I think there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about sales techniques, right? And I think that you in your career and what you do and the way that you can articulate staging and frameworks and scripting is really unique. But to the founders, to the sales leaders out there, how do you replicate Troy Barter, somebody who you have that with, and give them clarity of their pipeline and do that repeatably with more than just high performers? And I think that's the trick is like as a CEO at Rocket Shipping, I'm trying to find a way to not just have one top sales rep or two and the rest are below average or average and you kind of wait that out. But how do you rinse and repeat and say, hey, take an SDR, move them to this. Maybe it's AE, maybe it's SDR one, two. I don't know what the staging will be, but how do you do that? And I don't know if you'll have an answer to that necessarily, but that's what we're going to talk about in these series of episodes is open sourcing how you can repeat somebody who's great at sales and then for an organizational level be able to build a predictable revenue model,
So,
predictable and repeatable.
this will resonate with you. You played a little baseball. I said this to one of our reps the other day. I rewatched Moneyball 2 days ago, and that's probably the best
Great movie.
explanation of anything is the start where you have all those old scouts. I used to first time I saw Moneyball, like like a light bulb went off where I was like, this needs to be applied to sales. Like this is the same exact thing. And I'd read a book, The Sales Leader's Playbook by Nathan Jamel, where it basically is completely like sales is sports. It's the same thing. Like, and it's all here's how you relate all of it, and here's how the greats did it, and how it relates to
Yeah.
sales. And what were those old scouts talking about? Like one of them was like, "Oh, his girlfriend's not good looking enough for us to bring him on the team. He has no confidence." That was one of the things. And it's like, "Oh yeah, or he looks good. He's got the look, got a great jawline." And it's like, if you think about
Yeah.
certain sales offices, guarantee I've heard it a billion times where they're like, "This dude has the look. He's got the confidence." And it's like, all right, and by the way, that doesn't necessarily, you don't need to throw that out the window, but that's not the foundation. That's
Yeah.
not what you build on. It's all of the stats. So like if you're looking for more great salespeople, you got to look inward at what's making your existing salespeople great. And you have to be able to find like literally all of it
Mhm.
in terms of like where, like, so that's where staging does help. Where it's like, is there this dramatic thing that they do within our sales process where their conversion rate is much higher, and why? Why is that? Or what buckets are they going out of?
Yeah, like you were talking about with the utility bill. Once you had the electric bill in your hand, the conversion rate went higher. You have to look for wins like that
Yeah,
or tangible stages that once you get there, now
yeah,
you
yeah.
have that higher
An
percentage.
example in our morning meeting this morning, where Jake was saying, "Hey, he's crushing it," and it's like, wait, these are like, get the vibe, like these are a lot of in person meetings where he just showed up and he started to set it from there. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, like,
Going to one right now. He just walked
okay, so
out. He's
like
walking to one
I
right now.
like it's kind of a luck out. We never even talked about it. I have a lot of experience in face to face sales and door to door sales, but does every freight broker and does every salesperson in 2023 have that? Nope. They absolutely don't. Most people are petrified of going door to door compared to everything else. So then it's like, well, wait a minute. That's
Yeah.
probably not necessarily a prerequisite, but if we had somebody that could go face to face and was a killer face to face in another market that we know would work like the market that we're in, would we get more than if they had this, this, and this? And my gut says the answer
Yeah.
might be yes. But then on top of that, it is where staging comes into play, because like you have to know what your conversion rates are on everything, and then you can take a look and be like, oh, here's why they're doing well. Like, for me, for
Yeah.
SDRs, like when it's the entry level role, most of it is motivation. So when I interview them, I talk for most of the time. It's pretty obvious just based on our first podcast. It's something I can easily do. But but what I'm looking for in a video interview or in person is I can see in their eyes whether or not I'm getting them hyped up by talking about the opportunity and everything like that, and laying it out there. And that's almost all I care about when it comes to an SDR. Are you ready to run through a wall?
I've never even
What
thought
was
about
that?
that actually. I've never even
Because everyone will
considered
tell you
that
you're
as
an
an
idiot
angle
if you
in
do it.
interviewing. I've never done that.
Everybody. There's no one that would say that that's a good idea. But to me, all I care about is, can I get you hyped up? Because if I can get you hyped up once, I know based on
Yeah.
my experience, I can get you hyped up forever. I know, like and I can create the support that'll not just be, you won't just be inspired, you'll be motivated, you'll be both, and it can be, I can make it intrinsic, and we can work with it long term. But for the most part, that's not what people are looking
Yeah.
for. And it's like, well, what do you need in an SDR? I need someone that's ready to run through a goddamn wall. That's it. That's all that I need, is someone that's ready to do whatever it takes to make it happen, and I can get them excited. So and if I can't, then
Yeah.
it's like, all right, we can't work together then, because for
Well, because I mean, if you look at the core tenet of an
yep,
SDR, it's volume, right? One, they're likely new to your organization.
yep,
That's your entry level. They are going to get given a script and a playbook, and depending on how good that is, they might be more successful. Depending on how good the product market fit is, and how long the sales cycle is. If it's a short sales cycle, they might be more successful early. But at the end of the day, they're learning, so volume matters. And if you can't get them motivated and fired up to run through a brick wall, pick up a phone, go in person, do all those things, then it's almost a prediction
yep,
of the outcome. And so to kind of wrap this up, I think we're going to need to
yep,
break it in two parts, probably for your story. But where we ended on part one for your story was Fleetmatics killing it in the early days. There's much more to that story, and how you ended up
yeah,
at Rocket, I think it's interesting, deserves its own time. But there's two things that just happened in the end. The last 5 minutes here was, we talked about, you had a morning meeting with Jake, right, or with the sales team. This podcast, we are actually building a freight brokerage TMS, SaaS software, all of it. There's in person, there's cold calling. We've got a marketing team. We're doing media. We're actually building it, and we're just going to open source it and let you know how it goes. So one of the updates we'll do in the next few episodes is how is the in person meeting going, and how is that channel going? Is that growing? And then secondly would be that we talked about value prop. We talked about option close,
yep,
I believe, not trial close, option close, and we talked about staging. What we're gonna do is Barter and maybe myself will be releasing mini episodes of what we do for staging at Rocket, and we're just gonna open source it and give you updates along the way. It's a unique perspective. We are actively building we've got 27 employees. We've got around 6 or 7 true sellers in the team right now, between VPs, head of sales, and SDRs and AEs. We're growing that team, but we're actually out there in the trenches doing it. I think it's a unique perspective for the market, and I hope you guys will tune into the next episode. We also, just to give a tease, we'll be bringing go-to-market leaders that Troy knows, that I know, and we're going to interview them and see what tips and tricks. We're going to talk about AI. I'm sure that's going to be exciting for some of you. But to keep it, tangible, we're going to talk about open sourcing our company, and then also where we fail or where we make mistakes and how to correct it as an organizational level, how to motivate sellers, and how to do rev ops, and how rev ops can work with sales. And a lot of those things are not done specifically at Rocket Shipping. They're not done in the freight brokerage industry at all. It's a bit more old fashioned. It's pound the phones, which we do, but there's mostly cradle to grave in our industry, where you're picking up a phone, you're calling the customer or the prospect, but then once they start to be your customer, you're still the account manager. And at Rocket, we are flipping that on its head, taking some of the successes of SaaS selling, and that is why I recruited and went after and did everything I could to get Troy Barter to come work here. As another tease in his story, he started here as an account executive after having been a VP and a director, and all of this success. I think that says a lot. He's now the head of sales. Next episode, we'll go in more depth on what Barter's career has been since he crushed it at Fleetmatics, and we will also in between be dripping out info about staging, value props. If you want to support us, though, guys, we're not going to do any ads on this show, but we do want to build a following through this Rocket Revenue on LinkedIn, on Twitter or X, on YouTube, on TikTok. And so if you thought this was valuable, go ahead and give us a follow, interact, comment on the link, comment on the episode on LinkedIn, and tag somebody who you thought would find value in this as well. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next episode.